Hi everybody, Dhaman Mehta here, and thank you for once again joining me on my journey as I go through my favorites list on fanfiction.net. Not gonna go anymore with the apologies or whatever. Let's just get into these 7 stories that I got for you today, starting with Shin Megami Tensai Heaven's Feel by Sacchin. And this is a Persona 3 crossover with Fate Stay Night, where Minato gets adopted by the Einsburns right after the accident that kills his parents. Uh, his story really does not get very far. It just dumps a lot of system lore on you, and then Minato makes like a couple social links that level up a little. There's no huge draw for this, and it's an incomplete story. That means it just dies on the fire of novel ideas that never grew enough to really shine or have anything truly worth revisiting. So it's going to fall off my list. Next is Changing Tides by mortenavida, and this is a sequel to the story in Iron Magic, which was a Harry Potter crossover with the MCU where Harry replaces Tony Stark. Like Tony Stark died, and Harry basically took on his life to find out who was stealing from the company. And this goes through Iron Man 2 and the Avengers movie. And this is a mix of better and worse than the previous story. It's better in that the changes from canon are much more dramatic, and the tension of like the palladium in Harry's chest is a much bigger deal because Harry's not as smart as Tony. It's worse, in my opinion, because the main fun of the first one and stuff was the chemistry between the Harry Potter characters that are all subbing in for Tony's, like basically all the Harry Potter characters interacting one of each other. They most of them get pushed to the sidelines as the other cast of like Nick Fury, Natasha, and everybody start coming in and take up the main roles, and they just don't have the same rapport as the friends do. Um, I still found it enjoyable, and I think it's a good continuation of the first story. But I found the first one to be more enjoyable overall. But I still think this is a good collection of stories, and it's going to stay on my list. More Avengers now with Some Assembly Required by Belcris, and this is a Naruto crossover with the MCU where Naruto like dies during some of his fights, and then ends up in the MCU and falls like befriends Tony and falls in love with his female doppelganger that he meets in the thing. Um, it's fine, like nothing spectacular. It gets through like Iron Man 1 to actually I don't even know if it goes for Iron Man 1, but it goes for Iron Man 2 and the Avengers movie before ending just basically exactly like the movie did. Perfectly fine and serviceable, nothing objectionable here, but not worth revisiting either. So it's going to fall off my list. Next is A Curse of Truth by Brutal Learner, and this is probably my favorite SI fic that I've read. It takes place during Harry's. It's a Harry Potter SI fic where takes place during Goblet of Fire, where our self insert smashes his way into basically Harry and Hermione's friendship circle, along with a couple other favorite characters, and learns a bit about magic. But the story is very much, instead of most like SI or like those kind of fics where it's all about just powering up and learning secret lore and just spending hours and hours and like so many pages of text just finding secret power-ups. This is very much more focused on just the relationships between the characters and just more just like drama and like growing as friends and just growing their relationships closer, which I find a lot. Like I enjoy this very much. There is a small level of Gary Stunis where basically it just seems weird how the SI can just worm his way immediately into Harry and Hermione's circle, and Harry and Hermione and like the Golden Trio circle, and just like immediately become friends with everybody. That's the main point. And like he does have a little bit of a thing with just like automatically having wandless magic and stuff, but it's not, again, like the focus is not on the accumulation of power, and it's not like a curb stomp fic or anything like that. It's very much about the relationships, and I just really like the drama and stuff that comes with. I can see why I just really enjoyed this a lot, and it's my favorite SI fic that I that's definitely the favorite one that I can remember right now off the top of my head. I recommend this to anybody who wants like a chance and wants to give an SI fic a chance, and it's gonna stay on my list. Moving on to The Empty Sea with King of Zero X. This is a Kingdom Hearts crossover with Persona. Persona 3 again as well, where Minato at the end of his journey afterwards becomes a Heartless and basically regains his body within the first minutes of like basically the first beats of the first chapter, just in time to join Sora on his journey in Kingdom Hearts 2. It's a little interesting as Minato has lost most of his memories, and then there's the nobody Minato that appears as a powerful antagonist. But the story only gets to like a couple worlds, and we don't really get to see the big story beat of Aegis meeting up with either the Nobody or the Heartless Minato. I'd call this another one just like the first story, where it had good ideas but didn't get far enough or have enough memorable moments to make it worth revisiting, and it's going to fall off my list. Number 6 is Your Summon is Pink by Lord Dragonclaw. And this is pretty straightforward, where Naruto gets a different summoning contract. When he was going to get the Toad contract, something happens, so he doesn't sign, and he ends up summoning ponies instead. This is another one where not much, it does not get very far. He basically just gets, I think, gets like the start of the Chunin exam finals. And there's really not any, again, same thing where it's perfectly fine in the moment, but nothing really memorable or sticks out that you will remember after you put it away. I will say, like, it was a little like interesting how they turned the My Little Pony world into a summon world, and like how that has to then interact with how the other summon worlds are, and like a little bit of like backstory there. But overall, it's just another one of the fics that are like, okay, but you didn't get far enough, it's not complete, and it's not worth revisiting. It's gonna fall off my list. Alright, and the last one for this video is The Celestial Suicide Mage by, once again, King of Zero X. And this is another Persona 3 crossover for this thing. I think like 3 of these stories are Persona 3 crossovers. This one with Fairy Tail, where after the end of Persona 3 and like long after he's been the Great Seal, he gets Minato gets resurrected by a Dark Guild into the world of Fairy Tail, like when Erza is still a child, and saves her from slavers. I know nothing about Fairy Tail, never watched the show, never really read the manga. Aside, like, the only thing I know of it is from the one the bits that I've read from one other fic that I've read. But this fic did not change that. Like, it did not really explain anything about what's going or help out what's going on in canon. And like the story is kind of a not jumbled mess in the sense of like time, but like there's a lot of just empty space here. So good points. Minato is pretty fun because he's constantly acting like super carefree, super relaxed, and super crazy. But that's basically it. Like, the fights and stuff are not really that great because it's usually Minato using some personas in a way to basically no-sell everybody. And the thing that makes it confusing when I said like the story's kind of jumbled is that there's huge time skips basically between every single chapter, and sometimes scenes in the same chapter, which are like years and years apart. And that not only does that lead to just, huge jumps in time, but it also leads to lack of continuity and lack of relationship building. Like, one of the big things is like one character from Minato's past shows up and like reunites with him, and then he's like, I'm gonna join Fairy Tail just like you, and like apparently bunch of the fairy tale characters knew him as well. So it's a big scene, and that's how it ends the chapter. And then literally the next chapter is like, oh, 1 year later, time jump, and it's like Minato had to kill him, and we saw no see. There was nothing of him like connecting with any of the characters and stuff. And when he comes back, like everybody feels sad and stuff. It just has no weight, and it feels unearned. And a whole bunch, and like that is one huge problem with this, because that's how a lot of relationships, basically all the relationships get built in the time skips that we don't get to see, and we just get told about them and that they are supposed to exist, and that they don't feel relevant. The time skips also lead to the fact that where it's like, basically after every time skip you can read the scene by itself. At one point I just got so bored, kind of got like bored and tired of this story, that I just skipped like half a chapter. I just decided to stop reading like half of a chapter and move on to the next chapter, and I wasn't any more lost than I was previously. I could follow what was going on still. Well, it just was really annoying. The story's not complete and this one there's no chance, because the author in the final chapter that they posted literally was like, I'm tired of fairy tale, I'm not writing this anymore, I give up. So there's nothing spectacular in this. You can skip this without worry, and it's going to fall off my list. So there we have it, another video, another 7 stories down. Fanfiction status time. I have now read 808 stories, and 387 of them have stayed on my list. So thank you for watching. As always, I will leave links to all these stories in the description down below, as well as a link to my profile, the playlist, so if you want to see these videos from the beginning, as well as a link to a forum, Sufficient Velocity, where I also post this if you just want to read through them and like see them, get links to all of them quickly that way. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.